Jacob Godbey. I'm a handyman. I've been a weld inspector, and then a quality engineer before, which is where I get a lot of my materials from like weld shops and things like that. So I live over on West Washington Street, so I'm on the west side of Bloomington. This is really my biggest sculpture, my main thing. I do a lot of flowers, and then so I also like to do pottery. I like to do tie-dye, just different things. I like to be creative in different ways. And I guess it's just I like the arts and crafts. So as far as like other sculptures and things, no, I really don't think I have anything else. Nothing this size. And this one, like, I tried to make it so that it was like to scale. I mean, it's definitely not life size. I started out wanting to make it life size. And I realized like the legs, the femurs, the things were too big. And so I tried to put things proportional to what it was. And I kind of started with the rib cage. But of course I had to build from the ground up. So based on the size of his foot and the parts available, I maybe cut some things to make them fit. Most of it was just the actual size of what it was, and I just picked out random things. I do a lot of scrap metal, so if it doesn't end up, if it ends up on my trailer, it's useful. So if it's got a use, then I'll use it. If it doesn't, then it goes, it just keeps coming. There's more and more. So there's some things that I set aside because I know that I'll use them or I could use them, and they're harder to find, especially when I was working as a quality engineer. We would scrap things. We'd make them, they'd be slightly off, and the company would sell them to me at scrap price. So like that was my opportunity to get material, good material, basically brand new at scrap price. So I took advantage of that. And when it was quarter penny a pound, they were like, if it's less than 50 pounds, Jake, don't come up here and ask me. Just take it, because I have to do the paperwork, and it's going to cost the company more to do the paperwork than for you to just take it to your truck. So yeah, it worked out great, and we made so many different things. So to me, it's just, I don't know, it makes sense to use it. So yeah, as far as like being in the show, I was really excited because it is West Side, and the West Side gets such a bad rap a lot of times, and I mean, it is a rougher neighborhood, but things are rough everywhere as far as I'm concerned. So we need to make the best of it. And so if we can show off and say, hey, there's good things over here, let's make our neighborhood nicer, let's take care of things, let's give us a reason to be grateful for what we have. So it is just a good way for me to maybe get this out, that I do like to do art. I don't have a goal of ever being like my son. He's like, why don't you just be an artist and make things? I was like, I wish I could, buddy. But at the same time, I'd like to get just show off things I do, and it's an honor to me. It's just an opportunity that this came up, and I didn't want to just miss out. It's the main reason. I thought it was cool. I'd like to share it with others, and then if I can help out your organization by selling it, and then helping out, that's a big thing too. I mean, art, not too many people get to show off their art, so it's just a really big deal that I even get to, I'm honored to be able to display it. So even just showing it off is good, but if I could sell it, that's super cool too. So when I was making it, I was just making things, and then I started out like his hips were made out of old car jack, and I had like 3 or 4 of those laying around. So I keep things hoping that someone might use it, but like I said, when it gets too much, then I just gotta get rid of it. The stuff just keeps coming. So I had a car jack, a couple of those laying around, so I used those. I had a fire poker. It's a pretty fancy fire poker, actually. It's one I wanted to use, and I did use it a little bit, but the handle was kind of broken, so I just stuck it in there. It's the one behind his leg. The skeletons, or the rib cage, is made out of what's called a skeleton from a laser cutout, and it's a part, so you see the silhouette of the part, and what was left was almost perfect to be a skeleton. I've actually made Christmas trees out of the same material, And then, so this one I had to bend and shape it a little bit, put some welds in there. The hips, like the disc things, were just random cutouts. So all those little pieces were smaller parts that would go into another part. So when you cut out something on the laser, you try to minimize the waste. So if you have to cut out 7 parts, but you have smaller parts, you can put those inside the skeleton to minimize waste. So that's what they were doing there. And then like his kneecaps are made out of the things for, they're a lot of times, so they'll do like what's called a welding coupon, a test coupon. So they were cutting the metal so that people could weld in different directions so that you can prove you can weld. You gotta weld horizontal, you gotta weld vertical, and then they do one at an angle, and then you gotta weld around that. And that's like, if you can pass that test, you passed all the tests. So it's basically the hardest weld. So, and then since I was a weld inspector and I really enjoy it, like his feet, one of his feet is made out of bent pieces of metal. So to be accepted as a welder, a weld certification, a lot of the weld coupons are 1-inch plate. They cut them into like a 1/4-inch strip. They weld it, so you weld a 6-inch plate, and then you cut it up like slices of bread, and then they bend it. And that's how they test it to make sure that it passes. If it cracks, it usually fails. If it doesn't, there's so many different tests for different things, but that's a pretty common test. So there's like weld coupons in there, which are the test pieces. And then his other foot is a farm implement, which is called a bullet ripper. And so that one, it's like drugged by a combine or something, or a big plow, and that just rips it up. So this is a new design. It was something they were making, and it's a very ugly part, but it's got what's called like hardened steel on there. It's a certain weld that's just super hard metal, so that it doesn't wear down as easy. Another thing, so like when I made it, I wanted to, since he was all pieced together out of random things, what I wanted to do was put him in. So we also decided, so this girl Jenny helped me do it. I was gonna do it and put it downtown for a scarecrow. There was like the scarecrows, they do the Christmas trees every year, and they do a scarecrow back when they had adopt-a-pots. So I was gonna put that in there, and I realized this thing's way too tall. It'd fall over and hurt somebody, it would be a big mess. So I'm not even gonna bother taking it down there, but she was helping me because I had the time crunch. She was a welder. She was like, oh, I love to weld. I'll come over and help you weld. So she came over to help. And so we just started throwing things together. And like, she actually put the butt on there. Like a skeleton doesn't have a butt, but she's like, it needs butt cheeks. So she put that on there. And of course she was helping. So I'm not gonna tell her no, she can't be creative with me. And then, so we kind of had like a Freddy Krueger thing going on. We got the Freddy Krueger welding glove, which I think is great because it's welding. We used the old welding glove that was all burned up, so we repurposed something that was going to go in the trash. And then we really had trouble with the head. I knew I wanted to use like a helium tank or something like that to make the head, but it was hard to find something proportional. I was trying to stick with proportion. So I'm like, oh, I'm just going to make him a headless horseman, and he will hold the head. And so I decided to use a pumpkin, and I love that idea because then I can change the pumpkin every year. I can design the pumpkin to be happy or sad or, just scary, whatever. So my idea was, let's just use the headless horseman. Now he's Frankenstein because he's all pieced together. He's Freddy Krueger, which is scary. I wish I had scissors. I would throw Edward Scissorhands up in there. I didn't have enough scissors to do that or the time to get the materials, but and then the headless horseman. So now he's a Frankenstein made out of different scary things, made out of different random parts that were just laying around. And so there's just so many different pieces in there. I don't know what all's in there. I feel like one of them, I don't know if it's a bicycle frame. There's like his arm on the other, like his left arm. It could be, I don't think it's like an airplane part, but it was like a lightweight material, but it was steel. It was a type of steel, really strong steel. But I liked how it all came together. That was actually one piece. And then, like I said, those are gorilla welds. I'm a weld inspector, not a welder. So those welds are ugly, but they're good enough. They're strong. And then for artwork, there's really no pass or fail on a weld. It's just what you think is acceptable, as long as it holds it up. And like I said, I drove here on the Bloomington Road, so it passed the test as far as I'm concerned.